He's coming home.
Football's not coming home. The man's coming home.
Football is coming home because he's the biggest athlete in the world. I've got the squeaky chair today. The biggest athlete in the world is coming home. And this is what we were going to talk to you guys about. Cristiano Ronaldo.
We're not going to bore them about the whole
You mean bore
podcast
them?
of talking about Cristiano Ronaldo.
You can see Man United fan, not Man United fan. But anyway, aging was what we were talking about. Welcome back.
Welcome back to the podcast. Yes, aging, and not a case of the idea of we're all getting old and we've got to stop doing this and all sorts, but really the concept of age and performance or function and health and what does it mean to everyone? Because there's a huge amount, isn't there, of everyone's getting older, and as soon as Ronaldo was mentioned, it was a case of, oh well, you know, he's now older and he's not this, and it's always very on the negative side. But
well, actually, there was a Man City. There's a pundit who's a Man City fan. 2 days before said Ronaldo coming back, it's going to be awesome for the Premier League, and he's going to be like really, really doing well. And then he signed for Man United, and they said, "Oh, he's past it.
He's past it. He's all had it."
At 36.
And on the other hand, well, I'm probably going to say her name incorrectly, but to be topical and time along those of age, you've also now got the headlines all about the young women tennis player. She's now British number 1, 18 years old.
First final.
Raducanu, is that how you would pronounce it?
I believe so.
So she's due to this, the result will already be out when the podcast goes out. She's the first in 44 odd years of a British woman to be in a Grand Slam final and also at the age of 18. So I thought the other day was like, isn't that quite cool? You've got an 18-year-old just in the fledgling of starting a career and at the hitting the peak. And then you've got Ronaldo, who's said to be past his peak, but is was it in the international break, broke the record for the most international goals, and yet he's then signing for debatably the biggest football club in the world, and no signs of accepting, and Lionel Messi then moving to Paris Saint-Germain. These guys are still operating and functioning at their peak.
Well, yeah, you still look at the stats, and like people say with Ronaldo that, oh, he's past his peak and stuff, but he still scored more goals last season than I believe any of the seasons apart from the last one at Man United.
So then it makes us think of, on performance and health, when's our peak, and is that actually relevant? I've got patients who have will say that they're at the peak of their physical fitness and functioning, have the greatest understanding of their health, and they're in their 50s.
Yep.
Whereas we would tend to say physiologically, perhaps in the late teens, early 20s would be a peak. You have that element of peak performance, a sprinter.
I think physiologically is one thing, but entire health is completely different.
Yeah, and it goes back to what we said before, an entire health versus just one element of function. If you're a sprinter, you're in your young 20s, but if you're an endurance athlete, you're going to be older.
A little bit older.
Because your physiology is different.
Golf is different, like maturing your game and everything. And also, and that's one of the things where I had this conversation with someone today. He's ex-military, and I was talking about my client Stephen, who is a military vet from US military, and he's now in the shape of his life at 54.
Yeah.
So he's literally 54, was in May, shape of his life.
Do you think though that when with going back to age and fitness and health, that in our 20s we kind of, no one said, well, we take it for granted any time, but we generally are fitter, we generally have more endurance, our physiology is younger, but when we get into the 40s and 50s, we value it more. We're working, or that there's less pressure on us, more time if kids are getting older. I wonder what your observations are. Is I think in the younger we take for granted, and we have that natural strength. I certainly found that, whereas as I got older, you kind of become aware of changes in physiology, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to accept that it's just a downward.
Well, yeah, I mean, we can look at it from a functional medicine perspective, but I look at it from my own perspective is that during my 20s, and I last competed in 2012, so I was 27, so yeah, in my 20s, that was all about training harder. How can I train harder? Now it's about training smarter.
Yeah.
I want to have shorter sessions, only train what I need to train. Life happens, you're running a business that you want to make sure that you're in and out quickly. And yeah, I suppose there's some social aspect, but when we look at actual from a functional medicine point of view, cells do age, like cellular health does age as we go. But when we look at the actual things that are common, people losing their memory, I keep forgetting my keys, I do that a lot at the moment, and people say, it's just down to my age. Usually that's down to high levels of inflammation and stress that's been put on the body.
Yeah, it's kind of like the fail-safe go-to get out clause.
Yeah, waking up during the night. It's just because I've hit that age where my bladder control isn't as good. No, there's usually a reason, underlying reason behind it. We've talked about blood glucose management. We've talked about stress levels.
But then as we get older, then we eventually see the physiological effects of all that inflammation.
Yeah.
And so as we're older, we're more likely to eventually, it's no surprise that over 50s, you then have all the lifestyle conditions, the diabetes, the heart disease and that. But these are physiological inflammatory processes which have been occurring from then 30,
40 years ago.
Yeah. It's not suddenly we have heart disease.
And I think that's where awareness
process
needs
has
to
been
be
going
in there.
on.
And I suppose when we've had a lot of talk about Western medicine, that's in treating the symptom, but the underlying cause. And one of the frustrations I've had before is that a lot of the times medicine is there designed to treat after the tissue has been damaged.
Yeah.
Not, that's actually a sign that this could happen, let's fix it. There's studies that show that Alzheimer's can be seen about 15 years before. But the trouble is that a lot of times when we get to that point where we actually got irreversible damage, that is when it starts to be treated.
And that's when it's also diagnosed. That's when it's given a label and a name, and therefore the agreed research treatment from a medical perspective kicks in.
Yeah.
There's not that highlighting and that's, as you say, that's the big difference with functional medicine or preventative care, integrated lifestyle medicine, whatever label people are using. It's really identifying inflammation and change in physiology way before it becomes a pathology.
And I think that's where we come into protocols, which happens that someone asked on podcast, I'll share the podcast with you because it was on mold, and at the end of that someone asked, what's your protocol for this? And in a functional medicine aspect, we have certain things we could pull towards, but every single person is an individual. So there's with medicine, there's a protocol. You've got your headache, hydration stuff, but have your paracetamol.
Yeah, I was having a discussion with a patient earlier today, and we referred on for further testing and that, and she identified, she says, the challenge with a lot of what her experience was with her GP was that a lot of the care has just been, just to treat symptoms. And she said the differences with you is that she said to me that you seem to be also interested in why this is happening and what can we do about it and treating the cause. So I said, well, that is the key. And she said I said the other challenge is that with guidelines these days, and certainly in the UK with medicine, they wanted to get it more also that it's not necessarily an issue of who you see. So if you see a GP or see a medical practitioner, they will be following a set protocols. So the important thing is for you to see a medic, not for which medic to see.
Yep.
So your experience, whether you're in Edinburgh or London, would be the same, and they follow guidance and research-based, evidence-based protocols that your treatment will be the same, which in theory sounds fine.
Sounds good, yeah.
But you're now realizing that each individual has got different physiology and a different lifestyle, but then also each practitioner has also got their own individual bias and understanding. So you're never really going to achieve that.
Yeah.
So it's confusing saying, well,
and then there's different targets at different hospitals.
I will say, you would have experienced. They say, well, I saw the GP, and then did you go back and see the GP again? No, I saw another GP, and then I saw another GP. So they get lost in all that.
I don't think
in transition.
Obviously, we don't want to go into the politics of it or anything like that, but I don't think it's the GP's fault. It's the system they're in.
Exactly, and that's what my point.
The targets they have
is the system. The system is not conducive to finding the underlying cause, and also it's a journey of investigation. it's a time
I
heavy
think there was a
process.
stat I saw that it took an average of something like 15 years and 10 practitioners, or 10 years and 15 practitioners to diagnose average autoimmune or an autoimmune condition.
Yeah.
I don't want to say average, because it's like autoimmune things are pretty serious things to have. But one of the things when we go back to aging is that things like my thyroid is going to slow down, and one of the things that impacts thyroid function, as we know, like, and this is like if it is the thyroid gland, which most of the time is going to be autoimmune rather than just the gland, and the signaling side of things is stress. And when we get with thyroid function is that we'll have this pill and have thyroxine to improve it, or they won't dive deep enough. But it's not the gland that's causing it, it's the lifestyle. So you have this pill which is going to potentially help someone a little bit if that helps, or it doesn't help when they finally find the right medication. But if they're not fixing that underlying lifestyle which is causing the health problems, the stress, the smoking, the junk food, the late nights and that stuff, it's just going to keep getting worse.
So that's why I'm saying, going back to the age concept, is that when we were younger, so I played high level sport in my 20s, but I was fit and as healthy as probably as I've been because I played sport. I was never one who got fit to play sport. I'd rather go and play squash for an hour than go for a 10-minute run. So I was fit because I played sport, but my focus was not on the fitness. I loved the sport. Now with work demands and things, it's the opposite. I'm now looking to find time to put exercise and fitness into and then a lot more conscious of nutrition and other focus and that whole lifestyle concept. But that's only come through with age and understanding and through time. But even then, that understanding we really want to be ingrained in when we're in our 20s. Not just that we.
But would you have listened when you were 20?
Well,
at 20
probably
I was
no,
really
because
overweight.
But also the element of the science and the level of information that was different then. So I'm a lot older than you. So I grew up with the concept of margarine was the most amazing thing. Just realised, come on the thing, because this is going to solve out heart disease. And now we can look back retrospectively and go, well, how did that work out?
Well, I'm pretty certain.
So there wasn't that same information and understanding. But you're right, you might not.
I think even if I had the information, I probably wouldn't have listened as much, because I was really I'm still pretty stubborn. But I've got an Oura ring, I've got an Apple Watch. They both tell me my heart rate variability. I've got the glucose meter that I'm chesting out, like that sort of thing. Before, if I was training and I had a training session planned and my HRV, my heart rate variability, was low, and it says you're too stressed to train, you knew me back then.
You would have just trained.
I would have just trained. You've known me since just after my first ever show in 2008. So I've done 7 shows that you've known me through. I would have trained. But
the youngsters now seem to be, there's 2 groups. One who are like what we were describing, I'm just going to do whatever. But there's also a lot who they don't drink, they're not things, they're more interested in what they're
available.
And they've got more, but also they're also more tech savvy. So they also more of trying to find the right information. So whereas when I grew up, I never had an awareness of that. We just did stuff.
And sometimes,
so there is a difference.
Is there a difference to learning that way? Is it better? Is it worse?
Well, the same is with age.
I'd love to know everyone's views on this.
So going back to
well.
Ronaldo, is he actually, because he's now at a different stage of a career, does he exercise better? Does he take care of himself better? Does he train
Probably
smarter?
got his own cryotherapy tank.
So the
and
golfers,
in there.
The golfers, as they get older, they change their swing. They adapt almost because they want to. The beauty of golf is that you can have a long career, whereas the footballer is shorter. So by definition, a lot of footballers like Ronaldo would have been finished by now by his age.
Look at Rooney.
But look at him; he's as fit and as
age,
strong as anything else.
But the thing that we've had is
so it's not a numbers game.
You do get these people that stand out. Look at Ryan Giggs. He played until he was over 40. Yeah. Okay, he wasn't playing week in, week out when he was 38, 39, 40, but he was still playing for Man United.
Yeah, but then he adapted. So he adapted. His protocol. So what we're saying...
I would argue that Ronaldo's protocol is even more optimised now.
Exactly.
So are we going to start seeing actual, not just goalkeepers, but actual more and more outfield players be in their 40s when they retire.
So which
Could
goes,
we bring another decade onto the average age?
but so therefore it goes back to the why. Why is he still doing it? He's got the money, he's got the accolades, he's got everything. So it's still the driving force.
But if we see him do that, and then there's more and more money going into sport, would they invest in more players if they think the longevity is longer?
Yeah, and I think there's many factors and things.
It's evidence, isn't
But going back to age, I do think that there is also an element of, my dad lived until 90, but he operated and thought and hung out with people 15 years younger than him. Mm-hmm. So age is also just how long ago you were born. It doesn't put you into a category of this is how you have to behave, but a 60-year-old generally is probably going to have a different lifestyle and outlook on life. He might not be hanging out at the nightclubs with the 18-year-olds.
Well, this is where
so there is a difference with age, and there is a difference in physiology, but it's probably not as big. I don't know, I can't quote the reference, but I remember reading that really the physiological aging process is 2% a year. But we tend to amplify that, especially as we get older.
Well, when you look at like testosterone levels going down after 30, we end up going like 1% every year after 30. So we're 10% lower testosterone from 30 to 40 average before we take lifestyle factors.
But the good news, we can influence that, we can accelerate that, or we can reduce it. Yeah. But we also got to accept that physiologically our testosterone generally at 70 is going to be different to a 20-year-old.
Yeah. So it is going to be lower, but it's our choice really how much lower it has to be, and like that goes into like obviously we're at the end of the show here, but as we spoke about like we'll do a show talking about environment, and I think part of the environment is also the people you're around, and you've just literally like touched on that with your dad's story about being around younger people.
So there's many factors as we age rather than what your age is as far as how far or how long ago you were born.
Yeah.
So on that ageist note,
no discrimination.
How old do you feel? How old do you function? What is your strategy?
And how many goals has Ronaldo scored by the time we put this out?
For his age.
Yeah.
Right. One of the other concepts which we're going to be bringing up, certainly within our practice, is a question box. So if there's any questions, even just a one-off direct question.
Yep.
I wonder about this. What are your thoughts on XYZ? Then send us that question, or if there is an area or as part, even if it's just a 5-minute take of this is what we reckon, and that of an aspect of health or lifestyle or so, or you'd like us to go back and revisit a certain topic. I have a couple of patients who actually have gone back and they're going back and listening to a couple of the earlier podcasts.
Oh, sweet.
Which is, so we've done.
I wonder how much we've aged and
some things like milk and some things of sleep and then stuff, started going back and saying actually some concepts that I can go back to. I've got one patient who's going back and doing a week of cutting out sugars as a reset, and got that from one of our discussions and that. So that's always reassuring. But again, if there's other things going forwards that you want us to investigate a little bit more, we're all up for that.
And I think with the questions as well, you can remain anonymous. If it's a sensitive question, like you don't have to put your name on it, just put it in the box. If you want to put your name on it, great.
Yeah, and by all means, if you drop a comment or you email us and just say, I'd rather this just be done anonymously, or anyone can be Bill, Bob and Betty, then that's fine. Yeah. The most important thing is to get the information out there.
Bill, Bob and Betty.
Well, that came after that.
All the bees.
How good was that? Off the cuff. We'll start all the B's, and then next week we'll do all the C's.
Yeah.
Right. Have a good couple of hours. I was going to say weekend because it's coming up to weekend for us, but it won't be the weekend. So I hope you've had a good weekend when the podcast goes up, and we'll catch you soon.
Take care, guys.
Take care.